Welcome, fishies with sharp, nasty, pointy teeth, to Geek Salad's Retro Movie Reviews from the Geek Salad Podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Mike.
And we continue our look in the month of October at 70s horror. Movies from the 1970s that also happen to be horror films. Mm-hmm. So last week, we covered 1978's Halloween. This week, we are covering from the same year, 1978, Joe Dante's Piranha.
I definitely think that this one feels much different than every other movie we're going to be covering this month.
I fully agree with that. I feel like in terms of a lot of stuff. So first of all, I had totally forgotten Joe Dante actually directed this movie.
Yeah.
Joe Dante is probably in my top 10 favorite directors of all time. He has directed some of my absolute favorite movies. You know, the Gremlins movies. Inner Space, I think is my favorite movie that came out in 1987.
He didn't do Goonies, did he?
That was Richard Donner.
Yeah, okay.
I know, I feel bad sometimes. I confuse the two of them as well because they both work with Spielberg under this.
Yeah.
But and around the same time. Wow, this movie takes like the Jaws trope, and Spielberg said this is the best Jaws ripoff out of all of them. In fact, keep in mind, 2 years ago we did Italian Jaws.
In fact, because Spielberg actually publicly said that in 1978, it actually stopped Universal from suing the studio that was doing that did Piranha, because they were like, this is a little bit too close and it's coming up the same year as Jaws 2. We're gonna sue
bullshit. Get that out of
Spielberg was like, this is a fun movie. He's like, and they're like, okay, I guess we can't sue him now.
All right. So let's get down to the nitty gritty on this movie. You said it right before you hit the record button.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. It's almost like it's unfair to call it a bad movie. It's a better Jaws movie than the Jaws movie that we had to review. Yes.
Yeah. Out of all the sequels for Jaws, I think this
is better. No. All right. I will put this out here. It is more entertaining than 2, 3D, or The Revenge, and James Franciscus's Jaws.
Yeah. The only one that I think may give this one a run for its money is Jaws 2.
Okay.
Just because, but I just love Roy Scheider so much. I love Roy Scheider more than any of the characters in this movie.
Yes, exactly. Oh man, and I don't want to speak ill of the dead here, but we've got names like Bradford Dillman, Heather Menzies Ulrich, Kevin McCarthy. Well, actually, we know Kevin McCarthy is like one of those stalwart character actors.
We saw him in Inner Space.
We did. We've also got When the Keenan Wind Comes Blowing In.
I expected him to be on there in the movie a lot more than he actually was. Actually.
Oh my God, yes. He shows up as like Liquor Santa and then, just pieces out. Dick Miller, the legendary Dick Miller.
Yep. And another stalwart of Joe Dante, Belinda Balaski.
Yes.
She was the really nice camp counselor.
Yeah.
Ends up getting eaten. And you later see her in both Gremlins and Gremlins 2 as the mother.
Oh, that's right. We also have Paul Bartel playing this. Paul Bartel's a weird read in a lot of movies that he didn't direct. Oh. Paul Bartel was was Mr. Dumont, the camp, the head of the camp. Yes, the chief camp counselor. Because he always plays, he's always on the line of just being like, is he a gay asshole? Is he just a regular asshole who happens to be effeminate? I can't tell. And I mean, Paul Bartel is actually an interesting director. If you've seen some of his movies like Eating Raoul or the Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hills, there's a lot of he's very good at comedy, but a very specific type of 1980s comedy.
Okay.
And this he just kind of came across as being an ass. And I'm amazed he survived. Oh, that's right. He was in Caddyshack too.
He was in Caddyshack?
I don't remember, but there's all these Kurt guest starring callbacks here. It's just, I don't know. I mean,
and I will say, Heather Menzies, the female lead of this one, I had previously seen in Sound of Music.
That's right. She was also in. So interesting story. Reading the trivia here. So she had actually appeared in Playboy in 1973.
Yep.
But when she did this movie, she opted out of the nude scene.
I did notice that they, like, for her quick breast shot, they did that quick cutaway. I'm like, I bet those weren't actually her breasts.
They are not. It was pretty much like she and her husband decided she was not going to do the nude scene, so they hired, essentially a stunt chest.
Yeah.
For that, it could have very well been the girl at the beginning who got eaten, because it's when we first opened.
Hello.
I am here.
When
we first start the movie, that's what we get. It's like, oh, all right, let's go swimming. And I'm like, oh, we're getting into this already, are we?
I actually texted you. It's like, how can you really hate on a movie that gives you so much late 70s gratuitous boob shots?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to hate on this movie, but at the same time, it's really hard to recommend this to anybody other than people who like good schlock. I really feel like that's what this is.
Yeah, it's not a good movie, but it is still a fun watch.
It's a fun watch, especially if you've never seen it, or if you have seen it and it's been forever since you've seen it. And you just try to remember if you were like, what did that? Like, there were scenes in this movie that made zero sense to me. Like when they're in the lab and all of a sudden all these stop motion creatures are to never show up again.
You see them briefly and they're just walking around, and the main characters never see them. They're just on camera for maybe a couple minutes, and then they're never referenced or seen again.
You never see that. Paul goes from being a drunk to being clear-eyed and sober 15 minutes into the movie. Hell.
Yeah.
The weirdest part about this movie I was not prepared for was just nobody was off limits in terms of victims.
Yeah.
Children are eaten by this thing.
Yep.
And it was I can't believe you decided to do this, let alone get away with it.
And there was there were two nice female counselors, but there was one that was genuinely nice to Paul's daughter.
Yeah.
And she gets devoured big time.
Yeah.
You see her getting dragged away.
Yep. So nobody is off limits. And then you've got so first of all, what's interesting about this movie versus if you've seen anything of the Piranha remakes, the Piranha remakes take place on the ocean. This takes place in fresh water in a lake.
Yeah.
The most unappealing, I never want to swim in it, filthy lake ever.
And all the man-made beaches are for some reason a foot off the water. Why would you do that?
Who knows? I mean, and I'll pause it this way. Okay, so I'm not a beach person.
No.
I don't like the beach. I go because I go. I despise swimming in lakes. I truly hate swimming in lakes. Not so much for the piranha, but for all the garbage that is natural things that are growing underneath it.
Yeah.
And I just can't fathom having to swim in there. And these are some deep ass lakes.
One thing that just kind of totally threw me off though was the fact that they'd set up so much about this this camp that Paul's daughter was going to, and then halfway through the movie they introduced this whole thing about the new resort that's just and they introduced Dick Miller's character. I'm like, where the hell did these come from? I thought I was concentrating on the camp, and now we've got his whole resort that's opening up.
I almost feel like there were two movies that were being filmed simultaneously. Then they both ran out of money and said, "Let's join together."
Yeah.
It's
Dick Miller's character just comes really out of nowhere.
Yep. Comes in, doesn't pay a comeuppance.
No, but the Colonel does.
Oh, the Colonel.
But not the evil scientist who you just look at her as like she's an evil mad scientist.
Yes, exactly. Hey, all her job only required her to deliver the ominous lines at the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie is just it's I don't want to say it's a tough watch because it's actually a very easy watch. It's a very digestible, forgive the pun, 90 minutes.
I got that. That was a good one.
Yeah. The Piranha effects. So oh god, Dick Miller looking like he owns the local chain of fried chicken restaurants.
You're probably not wrong.
Come in for a leg and a thigh and check out the strip club. I'm running upstairs and check out the legs and thighs there as well. I'm Dick Miller and I'm faking an accent right now. I don't really talk like this. It's just the Piranha design is really tough for me to kind of like wrap my head around because you don't really see them all that much.
Right. And probably for the benefit.
Right.
The more, I get the feeling that this kind of would have been similar to Jaws, where the more you see it, the less frightening it gets.
Yeah, exactly. And for this movie, it was the sound.
Yeah.
It was the sound effect of them all nibbling at once.
Yeah. And I do like the fact that they actually, like, when they started attacking the boat, it wasn't that they're bad, there are people on there that I want to kill. No, they had a body like just drifting in the
Kevin
water.
McCarthy just bleeding his own blood out in the water.
And they just wanted the body. And they just started attacking the boat to get it. It made sense, actually.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of childhood trauma in this, too. These kids are watching people die.
Oh, dude, that kid that just has his father die right in front of him, and then has Kevin McCarthy die right in front of him.
Exactly. I mean, what does that do to a person, right?
I don't know, but yeah, I'm kind of surprised they didn't bring him back for Piranha 2: The Spawning.
The Spawning with assistant director James Cameron.
I think he was actually the full-on director for that.
I'm double checking that right now. I wouldn't doubt that that's true, but let me take a look.
Yeah.
Piranha 2, The Spawning. Oh shit, yeah. James Cameron, Ovidio G. Asantis, and others. That's the stamp of quality right there. Miller Drake. Yeah, James Cameron is the credited director on this movie.
Yeah, and yeah, it probably still has a better plot than all of the Avatar movies.
Yeah, probably. Oh man, yeah, it's tough. I mean, the whole premise of the Piranha is kind of tough to watch, but again, it's just schlock. It's really what it is. It's schlock. Better made schlock than some of the stuff that was coming out around this time because we got a lot of MST and riff tracks around this time as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But realistically, not one I feel like I'm gonna need to go back to anytime in the.
Nah, not really.
Yeah.
I will say when Paul goes diving underwater to let loose the toxic sludge to try and kill the piranha. Great plan, man. But like the first when she started counting down and he died in, and then they cut back to her, that was actually pretty much on par. Like what she should have been counting at was right.
Yeah, it was exactly 100 seconds.
Got rid of that. They just tossed it completely out. Because I was doing the countdown and no. All right, no.
Oh yeah, no. He is underwater far too long for somebody without a breathing apparatus.
Yeah, count to 100, nothing. Right. Yeah, they got to like 200 before she started up the. Yeah.
And then she just whips him out of there.
Well, he had to get
And
away
he
from the piranha
survived.
in the sludge.
It's just, you know what the funny thing about this movie too is that, you know, we think about this movie, especially because the remakes, like the 2010 remakes, really did a lot to kind of like position this as being, you know, another nudie monster flick.
Yeah.
And you think that Piranha was that way. The poster kind of gives you that indication. There is very little nudity in this movie other than the first scene. And then
yeah, you get the first scene, you get her showing off her boobs to distract the guard.
Yeah.
You get sort of kind of a half boob shot.
I don't count that. Don't count it. Don't count it.
She lifts her shirt and you do see him. You do see the
All right.
And then there's like
counting.
There's a few underwater things, but nothing.
Yeah, but that water was so murky. How the hell could you really, you know?
Yeah.
It's lake water.
Yeah.
Disgusting, filthy, don't drink it lake water.
What's really odd is like on the Wikipedia for entry for this one, it calls it a comedy horror film. And I'm like, I mean, there were a couple of brief comic moments, but it's more of just a straight up horror. I didn't see too much comedy in it.
No, I think the comedy was essentially at Paul Bartel's expense.
Paul Bartel and the female lead, I blanking on her name at the moment. Maggie.
Yeah.
Played by Heather Menzies. She had some comic lines. Ooh, especially with at the very, very beginning, a blink and you miss him, Richard Deacon. I did like to see Richard. I love seeing Richard Deacon in the movie.
Yeah, I don't really know what else I can say about this one. It's a tight 90.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I mean, we've got some real heavy hitters coming up next. So it's like
this was kind of like the light airy one. And
this is our aperitif before we start our main course, right?
Yeah, our last 2 weeks are some pretty deep ones.
Oh, yeah, we are dealing with some heavy hitters there, which I'm not going to spoil until next week, or if you go on my Letterboxd account, which, by the way, I haven't got around to watching next week's movie either, so.
Nor have I.
Yeah, well, I got it on DVD, so I have to watch it where I have a DVD player and no children. So, or no younger. I think the older can watch this one. So, anyway, I don't know. Anything else you want to say about Piranha before we wrap this episode? Because it's been a week.
Yeah, it's a fun watch. It's not one I go back to regularly, but I didn't. You know, I'd seen it like once a very long time before, and so watching it again, I was like, all right, it's a fun movie. I don't feel bad watching it. I'm glad I watched it again, but I could let another decade go by before watching it again.
Right. Now, if you want to watch it, it is available on practically every free service.
Including YouTube.
Yeah, you can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on Crackle. You can watch on Plex. It's there. So you can find it for yourself, and you can let us know in the comments what you thought of this movie.
Yeah.
So with that said, thank you for watching this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed our Halloween episode last week. I hope that you stick around in the next couple of weeks because we got, like I said, we got some heavy hitters of the 70s horror scene coming up. We also do this every week, as well as hosting a little podcast called Geek Salad. You can check that out wherever you get your podcast. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts for the time being, YouTube, where you have the full audio. We are there. We also do this every week. So check us out here. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button because it helps us in the algorithm. If you've seen Piranha, I'm genuinely curious. What were your thoughts on that? Leave a polite comment below. And if you want to follow us on the socials, we are at Facebook at Geek Salad Podcast, and we are at Geek Salad Radio on Twixter, Blue Sky, and Threads. Whew. So this is a quickie tonight, but again, it's been a week. So anyway, until next time, I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
Go forth, be nerdful, and watch out for snakes. I'm sorry, bitey fish.